Right, guys, welcome back to the School Coach Chat podcast. Pricing is a thing that we haven't talked about that much, but it's actually really important. And I think it's a dead giveaway that you could be a professional or an amateur coach potentially if you don't get this right. But Greg, good to have you back. What are we talking about?
I think a good way to start it is just what you said off screen about, if you step off the track, you have to be careful with landmines. And I think that with pricing as well, right? If you get it wrong, it's a dead giveaway that maybe you're not in the right space or you don't know where you are. So a bit like with the landmines effect. So I think probably a good way to start is why do so many people get it wrong and why? What's your thoughts on that, Dan? Like seeing it from an outside perspective, right? Why do you think pricing is such a, a sort of giveaway?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think most coaches feel a bit like grimy when they're asking for money because obviously most coaches aren't in it for the money, they're in it for helping people. Obviously, you need money to keep sustaining yourself so that you can keep helping people. Most coaches just think lower price means I'm going to get more sales, people are going to like me more. But that's actually not the case at all. Potentially, it's the opposite sometimes, where they'll just look at other coaches and go, okay, yeah, I'll do that, but 20% cheaper. And they haven't really put much thought into what the client is actually thinking when they're looking at the price, when they're looking at the bank account. But yeah, that's what my perspective.
Like when most coaches get into this, most of them have done either agency work or something similar, right? So if you go like with an agency that the price is set, right? But they bring in a lot of traffic and it's looking for a certain type of client. I think as well, like so many people used to shopping, aren't they? Right, going, Tesco's or whatever, right, and seeing discounts and Black Friday sales. But the more you get into this space, the more you realize that actually like putting your prices out there is such a flaw, such a mistake, such a giveaway that one, you're a nabby, right? Or two, you don't know what you're doing. Another way, like one when you're on LinkedIn and you can put the ring around your PFP of like open to work, right? Another one, it's the same sort of thing. Like, I don't quite understand why people do it. So the way I see that is price quality heuristic. Higher priced, higher perceived value, lower costs, low trust in coaching, right? So it's not actually like the higher price that we see stuff, the greater quality, the lower price it is, the cheaper it is, right? So let's say you're going to go to Tesco's and you want, I don't know, food, right? If you're going to make something decent, you're going to get the best glue. And you're going to get the most expensive one. If it's like an important bit of furniture, you're going to go for it right at the top, right? If you're not so bothered, if it's like a quick fix, if it's like, a school project, something you're not so bothered about, you're going to get the cheapest one. That's something called the Veblen effect, right? A psychology effect, right? The higher costs, higher perceived value, lower cost, lower perceived value. And the greatest way I can describe that is Lamborghini. So we spoke about cars before, Dan, haven't we? Right?
We have.
Right. So you go to a car garage, let's say you want a Volkswagen. Let's say you want an Audi, BMW, even a BMW to a degree, right? You go in there, prices are all on cars. Okay. What happens if you want a Lamborghini?
Yeah.
There's no prices. It says inquire within, right? So that's called the Veblen effect, right? The coaching is premium. But not everything in this space is premium, is it not? Like let's say like, social media marketing campaigns, creating ads, creating whatever, right? Some of that is a bit more like product based, isn't it? So what's your thoughts on that? When is it good to have something like a pricing when it's not right? Because I've got a good thing for that as well.
Yeah, I was going to say a caveat to that is not everyone has Lamborghini level coaching. So if you can't deliver the product, you can't really price the product as if it is a Lamborghini. Have to be Volkswagens as well in the market. If you can be a Lamborghini, obviously you're going to make a lot more profit. So just being good at coaching for one, getting that experience, getting those qualifications to make people trust you within the coaching is going to make a huge difference to what you can charge. And cheap doesn't build trust. It actually kind of does the opposite because it signals like low confidence in your results, in your experience. A high price with a clear outcome that's backed by something builds a significantly more amount of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I learned something the other day, right? Because obviously, a little plug, me and Dan are writing a book, right? The rule of 100. So if it's under $100 or £100, right, you should give a discount in terms of percentage. If it's over 100, you should give discount in terms of price, right? For neither of them, you should show the price of the product, just the discount, right? So let's say that a book is, you're going to market it at £40, £40, and you're going to give it away. You're going to give away and 10%, right? That looks much bigger than giving away $4 or £4 of it, if that makes sense, right? And I think that's also how you can look at it from a coaching perspective, isn't it? Let's say that you're creating, something really small, right? Maybe you do put the price on or the discount, whatever it is, but something big, high ticket, I think it has to be hidden, all right, because of the premium aspect of it. So what's your thoughts on that, Dan? That maybe like low ticket, right? It's a product, right? Maybe you do look at Black Friday sales. Maybe you do look at that like rule of 100. But high ticket, premium, Veblen Effect, Lamborghini. Maybe you don't put pricing on it. You hide it, make it more VIP. All right. What's your thoughts on that? Do you see coaches getting that wrong? What's your perspective?
Yeah, I like that actually. I mean, if you're charging, say, £5,000 for a coaching for a month, saying 10% off, it doesn't really hit the same as saying £500 off. £500 feels like a lot of money compared to just 10%. But I think the thing that most people get wrong is no one pays 5 grand for the coaching, the 10 coaching sessions itself. They pay it to get the promotion, fix the marriage, build the business. So you've got to kind of price the destination rather than the coaching, how you're getting there. And don't be held back by thinking, "Oh, this is £500 a session. That this is crazy. This is £200 a session." I think you should for sure think about the result. Is it worth £5,000 if I can make £50,000 in the next however many years? And so
Yeah.
you've got to communicate it like that as well, rather than just pricing the coaching itself.
Mm. Yeah, it's a good one. But it's interesting about the price of the coaching itself. It makes me think of something called the decoy effect, right? And it's something that we've done with clients ourselves, and even with what we do, right? If you look at our calendar, if you look at whatever, even if we hide our prices, if you really look for it, you can find a few of them on purpose, right? So the idea is you don't want you don't mind selling a 1 hour session, right? You don't mind selling a 32-week package, right? But what you really want is a middle ground, isn't it? What you really want is a 4 to 8, that suits the coach, that suits the client, right? It's enough time for transformation. It's enough time for you. So the decoy effect is to make the 1 hour look expensive. It's to make the 32 look long, and it's to make the middle look better, right? So to add just the right amount of discount or just the right amount positioning on it. Also, people tend to buy what they see first interested. So let's say that you want them to have the 4 week. You'd go 4 week, 1 hour, 32, right? So the medium, short term, and long in that order. Because if you're going to go with the first one, your eyes on that. But also means that they look at the hour and they go, oh, wow, 4 weeks a great price because I can get a 20% discount. All right. But what's the point in going for 32 weeks if it's also a 32, if it's also, 15% discount? So to put that one first and to put more discount um, is, is the decoy effect. If you look really, really carefully, that's what a lot of cars do. Right. So, like, let's say um, Audi S1,
Yeah.
right? So look how they do the pricing next time we're going in there, right? So look at their different levels, right? You can see what one they want you to buy because they see it, they put it first, right? They don't want you to buy bottom level. And they don't, and I actually think they obviously the top ones are premium, right? So they're actually limited, which is scarcity as well, right? Which is another pricing aspect, right? To make it a limited amount that you're going to sell. But actually, the one that they want to push, the one that they have the most amount on, they'll put first and they'll give it the highest amount of discount. It's interesting stuff.
That's interesting.
No, it's interesting stuff. But I did something to one of our programs, right? So, as you know, there's different ways to fire programs. Obviously, you've got the Calendly, right? But if you want to buy the marketing brainstorm, you could do it on Gumroad, right? So there's a choice, but it's limited on both ones. It's the only one that we limit, if that makes sense, right? The VIP membership that we do is limited on our banners and stuff, right? But actually, there's it's the idea of the scarcity to create that more like a limited sort of feeling, right? And I think a lot of coaches get that wrong. I think that they discount it way too much. They try to appeal to people by making it cheap, like Black Friday sales, right? But the issue is with Black Friday sales, everyone sees it coming. Everyone knows what you do, right? So it's almost like the bubble was burst. I've got another good one with that. The best way I can describe that is remember like a few years ago, let's say when we started that in 2023, everyone was giving away ebooks,
Yeah, they
right?
were. I remember that.
Everyone was giving away. Yeah. So it's like give away an ebook, give away something for free. Who gives away ebooks anymore for free?
Yeah, no one. People are bored of it.
Yeah, because everyone knows, right? Everyone knows what it is, how they've done it, right? So it's the same thing with like Black Friday sales and in this sort of stuff. Actually, it's like I think people have been trained in that way to see it coming, you know. And also another thing, right, with coaching and sales and discounts and stuff like that. Black Friday sales, flashy, all that sort of stuff, it attracts low committed buyers, right? And as we know, Dan, even from this, right, doing this sort of stuff that we do, that's not what you want, right? We're all after a certain type of clientele, a certain type of person. Actually, the discount gives out the ones that are going to maybe be a little bit more awkward. I might, you know. And I'd love to know that from your experience. Do you find that the ones who pay more are more committed compared to the ones that pay less? Are the ones that pay less harder work and less committed?
100%. I think if you ask any coach, they'd rather £1,000 a month client than 4 or 5, even £250 a month clients, because they're just more of a pain, if that makes sense. They pay less, but
Mm.
they expect more. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation where the client's not as happy and you're not as happy because the client's not as happy, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah,
just a recipe for a lot of headaches.
yeah,
I'll tell you another thing as well. People underprice because they are scared of hearing no on sales calls. So they'll underprice and so that they can hear more yeses. I tweeted about this morning, just thinking about the podcast. I'd rather get 1 out of 3 saying yes to £1,000 than 3 out of 3 saying yes to £100. I think you've got to be prepared to hear those no's because not everyone
yeah,
will be an ideal client for you. Not everyone will benefit from your coaching even. So if they are more invested upfront and you make more money, everyone wins. So don't be afraid of hearing no.
yeah. That's such a good way to say it, right? The fear of saying no on sales calls. So, do you remember? I call it the slap, isn't it? Right, the perfect moment to lay it on. Right, you know, the idea of knowing about someone. Do you want to put your kids through college? Do you want to, you know, earn enough money to put your, you know, your mortgage on? Right. I think lots of people feel guilty about selling that sort of stuff, but actually, you should be so assured of the product that you've got will help them get there. That actually the no isn't an issue, which gives me to another thing, loss aversion. People are more concerned about money lost than money gained. Just a psychological fact, right? So let's say that you're going to say to someone and you're going to lose £100 or earn £100, right? $100 either way. They're more concerned about losing £100 than excited than gaining the 100, which goes to show with our sales calls, right? The idea of leaving money on the table. That's why that's there, is the loss aversion, right? And I know like that's sleazy tactics, but actually it's true, isn't it? Right? It's leaning into some of the stuff. Actually, you should have a product that you know will genuinely help people, and actually saying it or putting it in that sort of positioning place in terms of that slap or the call one or whatever you're going to do it isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's awkward, right? It's hard. It's something I definitely don't like doing, right? But it's necessary, isn't it, in this space, is to have strategy to those calls, to know in a discovery call when you're going to pitch it, you know, and to remind them that losing is more feared than gaining, or more, you know, a greater feeling than anything gained. Interesting stuff, right? So, how about this? Have you been on any sales calls with other people and noticed them use interesting tactics?
Been on that many sales calls in my time, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people do is they'll just try and talk at you about how good the product is and all that stuff. But you've already read the website, you've already seen the content, you already know kind of what the product is. Sales call should really be about qualifying the person. So asking questions about whether there will be a good fit for the products rather than this product's really good, please buy it. And you don't even know who the client is. They definitely pick up on that and they
yeah,
don't buy it from someone who just wants the money and doesn't want
yeah.
to help the person. And if you do help the person, you end up getting paid more anyway, long term. So it's kind of a win-win situation. So ask those questions and qualify.
Something else. It's a really good point, right? And that brings me on to the next stuff, right? Okay, so let's actually, we were talking about someone before we even come on today. We're not going to name the name, right? I was looking at a website. So looking at the copy, potential client and what they're doing. Way too much stuff going on, right? Not even one, like three sort of niches and options and whatever going on, right? The paradox of choice. Actually, people want so more choice confuses, less choice optimal, right? So what's your thoughts on that? So there was a big thing that we did to our landing page for purpose, right? So the idea of how psychology fits, right? That your eyes are glued to top right, and then they go across the screen to bottom left, and then they go across like this, right? So up, down, across. So the buy now should be bang in the top right, and it should be the only thing that your eyes are glued to. different color, different font, all of that sort of stuff. So the signal is clear, less noise, more signal. So your intent that this is somewhere to buy is obvious. It might it might get a certain amount of people to click off. It might get a certain amount of people to, not be interested. But what it does is it draws in the ones and make you put into the thought into their head already. So have you seen anything like that clever or anything that you think, "Do you know what, that's great, right? Something that is interesting or unlike what others have done."
Yeah, I don't think it has to be complicated at all. Just keep it simple, and really be clear about that really specific person and that specific problem that they're having, and you're onto a winner, really. I
Mm,
mean, the amount of like life coaches I've seen who do life coaching for leaders and for mums and for divorcees. Like, what do you mean? You can't help all these people really well. And psychologically, people pick up on that. They will trust someone who is specifically for them well over someone who does loads of other things as well. So you'd rather go to a butcher for high quality meat than to Tesco's, because Tesco's do loads of things, but the butcher is only focused on the meat. So it's going to be better.
yeah.
So, I mean, I've said it a lot of times. I'd rather be a shark in a puddle than a tadpole in the sea, because
Mm,
you dominate that tiny little thing, then you've got the scope to expand later, rather than being the tadpole in the sea that just gets eaten by all the other competition that's massive and has been in it for 20 years already. So yeah, being specific, we go on about it all the time, but it is important. That's why we do it.
yeah. That's a really good point. Go back to being specific and, a sharp, right? One of the best ones that I've seen is this, right? Something that we've also that I liked so much I admired, right? And this is another thing. When you're in this business, you watch others and you pick up things, go, "I like that, don't like that," not so sure. But it was a really good one. Very hyper-specific niche, very interesting lead magnet, right? Video series, right? Not a book, not an ebook, nothing like that, right? And it was all for it. One thing, nice. So you're using LinkedIn as a landing page, one problem, one CTA, book on, video series, that's it. With an upsell at the end, hidden upsell, no prices, no nothing, could be found. It was an extra email added onto the email sequence. So actually, if you watch the email sequence all the way through, so let's say that, like we know we've used quizzes with clients before to sieve out the ones who aren't interested. So imagine that goes from maybe like a 40% open rate at one, all the way down to maybe like 10. You are starting to qualify your calls without sales calls all the way up until that upsell at the end of planting something in. I think that some of that is so interesting, isn't it? Right, the tactics and strategy with this behind pricing and being indirect and direct. People don't like being sold to, but they don't mind being persuaded. I think that's my sort of outlook on it. Right, got a good example. So you're in Bosnia. Do you remember? Obviously, kind of see me in Bali, right? So when you have the people on the tuk tuks and all that sort of stuff, right? You don't like it when they come up and they're like, in your face, blah, 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 blah. But if they're nice, if they offer to tell you a bit about the city, if they offer to give you something for free, right? You get to know them, they smile at you, all that sort of stuff, right? You're generally more convinced, aren't you, to take something. That's what I quite like about that email sequence and upsell. Actually, you give away something amazing for free. Never once talked about money. And it was just led all the way. And I can imagine that, the 40% went down to maybe like even less than 10, but then what he had was like 8% open rate, but one that's generally qualified and interested going into the upsell. Yeah, and I thought that was a really sort of clever way to do it. So brings me on to other things that I think coaches do with pricing. Because obviously, like they're saying that we're all attracted to like, the Alex and Moses and, people like that, right? They tend to make their high tickets very expensive. I think that's on purpose. So I talked about the decoy effect. Let's just say that a day with Alex Hormozy is $220,000, right? Something along that list, right? I've seen someone buy it and maybe I've only ever sold one of those. But then 1,000 ebook looks quite promising in comparison to 220,000, isn't it? It's an incredible amount of money for a free ebook, PDF, whatever it is, It's just pricing is fascinating. So let's put this into a scenario, right? Our clientele that we want are new or struggling coaches, right? Someone who's been burned, someone who is looking to maybe stand out in an oversaturated AI market, right? What would you tell them to do with prices? Would you tell them to make a big flashy sell, right? Flash sell, or would you hide it, be more subliminal, put it maybe in behind like an indirect sort of lead magnet? What would be your thoughts with that?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to know your audience, because if you're selling, say, an ebook, you're not going to be able to price that really high and make it out that it's like really premium and it's really in demand and stuff like that. You can't price that really high. But if you are, for example, targeting high net worth people, billionaires even, for the life coaching like you did, you can afford to increase the price. I think most people just, people are scared. People are scared to increase prices. People are scared to even think about strategy because they feel like it's salesy, sleazy. Um, but they, if you're being honest, then it can't be sleazy, surely. And it's just communicating that value through to them. That's the big thing
Mhm.
relative to the price.
I watched a video a long time ago by Guru, right? And it sort of made sense, even from a psychology point of view, about making promises, right? So how it's the biggest telltale. So like in content, someone's going to write, 5 ways to do this different, right? Very specific. Or when they write an advert, I need 5 people, whatever, right? It fits into that sort of thing. But the idea of promises in terms of sales, right? So I always remember in terms of life coaching, thinking, how the hell do you make those sort of promises? How the hell do you promise something which is incredibly hard to put a quantitative measure on, right? And then offer money back. So this goes back with pricing, right? Stuff like that. Week for free, money back if results on improve, if results on, achieved or whatever. What's your thoughts on that? Temporal discounting, right? So the idea of money back guarantee, first week for free, all this sort of stuff, right? Or do you think that that leads into a little bit of that sort of like Black Friday sales a little bit? Maybe also, even though we, saying that, we do it, we offer the first week for free, right? But we don't offer your money back at the end because I thought it's a very difficult one to qualify in terms of results, right? Because we're against the 10K months or against the 30 leads lies, right? So what do you think about putting in offers like that to shine more of a light onto the pricing aspect, right? About offers like money backs and guarantees and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, it depends on the offer. Like if you're a mentor, if you're a life coach, something like that, you can't really quantify the result that you're giving. So if you can't say like, if you're not happy after 8 weeks, I'll give you your money back. Can't people just say they're not happy? And I mean, it also depends on, like if you're a fitness coach, for example, if you were saying, if you don't lose 5 kilos in the next 2 months, I'm going to give you your money back. But what if it was the person who just didn't follow the instructions of the coaching? So it's a dangerous thing to get into, especially legally. If you're disputing that the guarantee wasn't valid, yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult. You've got to be really specific about exactly what the outcome is, what you've got to do to get the outcome as well, what the client has to
Mm,
do. But it does work, and that's why people do it. Want certainty.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Right, I reckon a good way to finish it, right, is crazy offers that we've seen and to talk our way through it, right? Maybe we play a game, you go, I go. So I think the craziest one I've ever seen was half an hour with Patrick Bet David on Minette for $250,000. Half an hour. What's your thoughts on a phone call with someone like that for $250,000?
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Bet David, he's obviously a famous guy. He obviously knows what he's doing. I mean, I don't know how many sales he's got from that. I'd be intrigued how many people have got that.
He's definitely sold one because I've seen people critique it, right? So there was someone who bought it and it goes that all he was saying was to talk to more people, contact more people, message more people. Half an hour. I think it is, come on. I mean, it's unbelievable, but that is as high ticket as it gets, isn't it? Right? As high ticket as it gets. Right. I've got another one for you. I saw someone on, I think it was Gumroad, who offered a lifetime amount of life coaching at $2,000. $2,000 lifetime. And I remember looking, it actually sold 3 of them. It sold, as you can see on Gumroad, how many that they've sold. That is just the maddest, most ludicrous thing I've ever seen in my life. Right, how the hell do you make a guarantee like that? And how do where's the value in something like that? Like that's, is it stupid enough to get people's attention? Is it too cheap? What's your thoughts, right? Because have you heard of like the idea of absolute ludicrousness, right? So the idea of being so crazy it draws people in. That's what I think that the Patrick Bet David thing is actually so crazy that it draws people into it.
I think with the Patrick Bet David thing, it's more to anchor that massive high price. compared to, for example, he's selling a course or something like that. People think, oh,
Mm,
well, if his time costs that much, surely the course is going to be really good if he's put that much time into it. I think it's less about making the sales with that high ticket thing and more just using it to anchor that the lower ticket thing is good and people should buy it. I mean, I've seen some crazy offers as well. I think I've probably had hundreds of people over the years tell me that they can get me to 10K followers, 100K followers, and they've got like 50 followers and they're messaging me this, and I'm like, come on, like if you can't do it for yourself, you can't do it for me. So, and we talk about that a lot as well.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You can't just talk the talk. You've got to walk the walk. Yeah, that's a really good one that I get flooded in my DMs as well. And you've seen obviously in my DMs, and sometimes my reply is just one, right? You know, I want them to explain, just
yeah,
answer one thing. And
never got an
obviously
answer.
that they can't. Yeah, I think it's because it leads into the absolute ludicrous idea that it might get 1 in 100 to accept, right? They might get 1 in 1,000 to accept. It means I think they're sending a hell of a lot of DMs to get one yes out of 1,000 for that.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. So I'm trying to think what other sort of mega crazy ones. Yeah, the £2,000 lifetime guarantee of life coaching sessions, right? The Patrick Bet David one. Okay, one of the most mega high ticket things is live events, right? So obviously some of them put it 20 grand, 10 grand, 15 grand, you know. Again, I just think, how the hell can you quantify that amount of money for a 90-minute webinar? Mind-blowing stuff. And I think you're right. I think it's the anchoring effect that maybe that's made to look so expensive that it shines the light on what they're actually trying to push. If they're lucky to get one or two on that, that's amazing. But the reality is they want to sell a £900 automated course. Brings me back to that sort of decoy anchoring sort of effect and coach trap message when it comes to pricing. Would it be hide it if it's high ticket, show it if it's simple, low price? Or is there more to it than that?
It's a big responsibility. I think you've got to know your audience, first of all, and you've got to not worry about what other coaches in your space are doing. Because if you just copy them, you're going to become the average. You're just going to become a standard coach who's not really going to be standing out at all. Usually, the advice we have for 90% of clients is raise the price so that you can attract higher quality clients. The price has got to reflect your experience and the results that you can get. So you wouldn't charge someone 2 grand a month to make them an extra 1 grand a month for their business. You charge
Mm.
them a lot less than that. People aren't going to pay for it. So it's just being reasonable relative to the value that you can provide and not being scared to hear those no's.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to end it, Dan, as well. You know, so for me, I think I found myself. I maybe said it 100 times to people that can't put a price on transformation.
Yeah.
Right, the idea of the Veblen Effect. Think Lamborghini, not Volkswagen Golf. If that makes sense in terms of coaching. But even for Lamborghini, they sell other things. They sell umbrellas and bags and t-shirts and stuff, right? And I bet they put their prices on those. Interesting stuff. And as always, been an absolute pleasure to to um to chat. What's the next one, and what do you think we should talk about next?
We'll have to ask them. I don't know. I feel like we've done AI, we've done DMs. Those are the big ones I would say. People are getting wrong. What else are people getting wrong? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Well, we're doing some live sort of webinar, seminar things with ICF about LinkedIn profiles, aren't we? Right. So the haves and the haves nots of what you should do. Maybe that's what would be a good one to do, isn't it? Right. I think another one would be as well is why are we writing a book? I feel that fits in quite well into lead magnets, upsells, all sorts of stuff. Right. The reason why you give stuff for free, even though it's not free, if that makes sense, but why you give. I feel like
Yeah.
there's some good stuff in that as well, right? So I feel like that's another thing that I see. That is a mistake that I see coaches doing, either giving way too much of themselves for free or not giving enough of themselves, right? They need something. It has to be something to draw people in more so than just a pretty face or, a flashy landing page, whatever it has to be. Something, I think that might be a good one. How much do you give away for free?
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people that are giving stuff away for free have no like process of monetizing it. So it's kind of pointless. So we could
Mm.
definitely fix a bit of that.
I never forget that person we spoke to with 40,000 followers and no clients, and they're the best
Yeah.
looking profile we've ever seen. Unbelievable. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable. Dan, as always, mate, been an absolute pleasure and looking forward to the next one.
Cool.